Good evening and welcome to our 4th of July celebration. The Star-Spangled Banner is the national anthem of the United States of America. The lyrics come from Defense for Fort McHenry, a poem written in 1814 by the 35-year-old lawyer and amateur poet, Francis Scott Key. After having witnessed the bombardment of Fort McHenry by the British Royal Navy ships in Chesapeake Bay during the Battle of Fort McHenry in the War of 1812. The poem was set to the tune of the popular British song written by John Stafford Smith for the Aeronautic Society of Men Social Club in London. With various lyrics, was already popular in the United States, set to Key's poem and renamed the Star-Spangled Banner. It would soon become the well-known American patriotic song. The Star-Spangled Banner was recognized for the official use by the Navy in 1889 by President Woodrow Wilson in 1916 and was made the national anthem of the Congressional Resolution on March 3, 1931, which was signed by President Herbert Hoover. Please rise and salute as the band plays our national anthem. Up next, we have Yankee Fanfare, composed by Travis Weller. This piece is an arrangement of the well-known American folk song, Yankee Doodle. Yankee Doodle was originally composed during the Revolutionary War, sometime between 1763 and 1783. According to the Library of Congress, one of these songs, which told the story of a poorly dressed Yankee simpleton or a doodle, was so popular with the British troops that they played it as they marched to battle on the first day of the Revolutionary War. The rebels quickly claimed the song as their own and hailed dozens of new verses that mocked the British, praised the new Continental Army, and hailed its commander, George Washington. When the British surrendered at Yorktown in 1781, being called a Yankee Doodle had gone from being an insult to a point of pride. Yankee Doodle was also designated as the state song of Connecticut in 1978. We hope you enjoy this rendition, Yankee Doodle, Yankee Fanfare. James D. Ployhar was an American composer, music educator, and film producer. He was responsible for many pieces of music well known to American band students. A public school teacher of 19 years, Ployhar was a prolific writer in the field of music education and authored contemporary band course. He received a citation of excellence by the Executive Committee of the National Band Association. He founded the Fargo Big Band All-Stars, a musical group that frequently performed at the historic Fargo Theater, and he co-produced the 1994 Disney film Iron Will. We hope you enjoy this new piece for us, Sing for America. Now we'll hear Americans We, a march composed by Henry Fillmore. Fillmore had the problems deciding on a title for this march. His band was given a series of concerts at the local zoo, so he would introduce the new work as a Cincinnati Zoo, one day as the pure food and health of the next. Finally, realizing that it was probably his finest march, he published it in 1929 as Americans We, and dedicated it to all of us. Vivacious, solid, and appealing, this march has the qualities that characterizes Fillmore's long life as an irresistible public performer. Hope you enjoy this piece, Americans We. America the Beautiful is an American patriotic song. The lyrics were written by Kathleen Lee Bates, and the music composed by church organist and choir master Samuel Augustus Ward. Bates originally wrote the words as a poem, Pikes Peak, first published in the 4th of July edition of the church's periodical, The Congregational, in 1895. In 1893, at the age of 33, Bates, an English professor at Wellesley College, had taken a train trip to Colorado Springs, Colorado. Several of the sights on her trip inspired her, and they found her way into her poems, including the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago, the White City, with its promise of the future contained within its alabaster buildings, the wheat fields of America's heartland, Kansas, through which her train was riding on July 16th, and the majestic view of the Great Plains from the high atop the Zebus Pike Peak. On the pinnacle of the mountains, the words of this poem started to come to her, and she wrote them down upon returning to her hotel room. The original Anthem's Hotel. The poem was initially published 2 years later in commemoration to the 4th of July. Ward's music, combined with the Bates poem, was first published in 1910 entitled America the Beautiful. Close your eyes and imagine the picturesque scenes that Bates would have seen on her cross-country journey as you listen to America the Beautiful, as arranged by Carmen Dragon. National emblem is a march composed in 1902 and published in 1906 by Irwin Eugene Begley. Begley composed the score during a 1902 train tour with his family band. He became frustrated with the ending and tossed his composition in the trash can. Members of the band fortunately retrieved it and secretly rehearsed the score in the baggage car. Begley was surprised when the band informed him minutes before the next concert that they would perform it. It became the most famous of all Bagley's marches. John Philip Sousa was once asked to list the 3 most effective street marches ever written. Not surprisingly, Sousa listed 2 of his own compositions. But for the 3rd, he selected the national emblem. National emblem was the favorite march composition of Frederick Fennell, who made an arrangement of it in 1981. Fennell called the piece as perfect a march as a march can be. Prepare to hear perfection in this piece, the national emblem. At this point in the concert, we would like to thank Channel 990, 991, and stgentv.com for filming our performances each week. Give them a big hand. And also, excuse me, if it's raining or excessive heat, we will be performing at the Performing Arts Center at the St. John School. There will be a sign at the entrance here at the Valley Desert to let you know. United we stand, divided we fall. These are the famous words uttered by Abraham Lincoln in 1858 during his campaign against Stephen Douglas when, regarding the Stars split, policies on slavery, and a need for unanimous decision. The piece you are about to hear is a stirring tribute to the America, containing excerpts from Simple Gifts, America the Beautiful, America, and the chorus of Battle Hymn. Within a big fanfare statement, this particular version was arranged by Sally Olibrecht and Jay Althouse and scored for concert band by John O'Reilly. Please enjoy these recognizable tunes in United We Stand, an American melody. The Liberty Bell March was composed by John Philip Sousa in 1893. It is often associated with the British TV comedy program Monty Python's Flying Circus. The Liberty Bell was written for Sousa's unfinished operetta, The Devil's Deputy, which fell through. Shortly afterwards, Sousa and his band managed George Hilton, the attendant the Columbian Exposition in Chicago, and watched the spectacle of America in which a backdrop depicted the Liberty Bell was lowered. Hinton suggested the Liberty Bell as a title of Sousa's recently completed march. Coincidentally, Sousa received a letter from his wife saying their son had marched in a parade in honor of the Liberty Bell. So Sousa agreed. The march is played as part of an exhibit in the Liberty Bell Center. The United States Marine Corps Band has played this Liberty Bell March for 4 presidents. The Liberty Bell is also the official march past of the Canadian Forces Public Affairs Branch. We hope you enjoy this classic Sousa March the Liberty Bell. American Patrol is a popular march written by F.W. Meacham in 1885. Written originally for piano, it was then arranged for wind band and published by Carl Disher in 1891. It was later arranged for the Glenn Miller Swing Band by Jerry Gray in 1941 and was also arranged by composer Morton Gould. It incorporates melodies from other patriotic American songs of the era such as Columbia, The Gem of the Ocean, and Dixie. The patrol format was popular in the second half of the 19th century, and a number of compositions are so entitled. The format was intended to represent a military band approaching, passing, and fading into the distance. It usually involved an introduction played by piano and pianissimo imitating bugle calls or drums. Then a theme played a little bit louder, then another very loud, then a retreat to the first theme gradually dying away and finishing pianissimo, piano, pianissimo, or even softer. We hope you enjoy this piece, American Patrol. final piece for tonight comes from the March King. The Stars and Stripes Forever is a patriotic American march widely considered to be the magnum opus of composer John Philip Sousa. By act of Congress, it is the national march of the United States of America. In his autobiography, Marching Along, Sousa wrote that he composed the march on Christmas Day, 1896. He was on an ocean liner on his way home from a vacation with his wife in Europe and had just learned of the recent death of David Blakely, the manager of the Sousa Band. He composed the march in his head and committed the notes to paper on arrival in the United States. The march was an immediate success, and Sousa's band played it almost every concert until his death over 25 years later. Sousa also composed the lyrics to the march, which are not as well known as the music itself. I'm sure you will recognize this well-known march, Stars and Stripes Forever. out to support the St. Genevieve Municipal Band. Give yourselves a hand. Thank you so much. And we would also like to thank any other individuals or organizations who have supported the Muni Band in any way. Thank you then, and next week we'll be down at the Valley Desert, providing it's not raining or way too hot. Thank you so much again, and have a great 4th of July.